Thanks again, sir, for inviting me, and Jigar, thanks for coordinating everything. It's really a pleasure to be here at this platform. So I'll start with the introduction of this topic. Okay, so I'm talking about a career which is very very close to my heart. Very few time, very seldom you enjoy really doing what you're doing in professional world. And I'm really happy to say that, I mean, sales is something which I figured out very late in my career. After initial 10 years in different kind of streams, that this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And that's when I developed a sort of a love for this profession. So I also realized that during my stint in various other companies, when I was studying also, I mean, there was no structured course around really B2B sales. I mean, we did not really know what exactly it means in the real life. And that's where I thought that it would really help for, students, whether it's IPM, EPGP or PGP, to decide what exactly this is and take an informed call. So it's a very, very coveted stream. If I ask you, and I don't want to oversimplify, various functions in a corporation or industry, but if I ask you that, okay, what are the really two important things for any organization, right? I mean, which is selling a service or a product, right? So I would, without oversimplification, I would say that people who are building a product and people who are taking the product to the market, right? Other functions, whether it's a marketing or it's finance or logistic, everything, that's basically enabling these two in somehow, right? I mean, helping the create to all the builders or helping sell to the sellers. And that's why, uh, uh, since it's a very, very revenue generating function, it has its own challenges, it has its own rewards. It's the stream is very, very number driven. You don't have to really explain people what exactly you have been doing throughout the year. Your numbers really speak for yourself. With that comes also the reward, because if you overachieve and if you do really well, you are very, very well respected in your organization because you contribute significantly towards your um, revenue generation for your company. So, not to introduce myself and why I thought that I'll talk about is because I have a kind of very mixed bag of experience. I started as a developer, worked a lot in pre-sales, and then I did MBA and then moved towards sales. So I've seen a bit of technology. I've seen of some of pre-sales. I've seen a significant amount of sales so far, and then that's where I thought that while I'll be at a vantage position to give you a sense of what exactly this role is about. So in today's session, yeah, so I mean, I'll say what is sales, why exactly you do it, some of the theories related to selling, which I want to really debunk. What are the differences between services versus product sales? What is hunting? What is farming? Uh, some people think that selling is an art. So is it an art? Is it science? Is there any method behind selling? And how to be successful? What is the roadmap like? Where exactly you reach after you spend considerable amount of time in sales, right? Some of these things I'll be talking about. The objective is not to, do a kind of hiring pitch here. So don't really come back with the resumes. But I really like advising people, coaching people, helping them either take a plunge into sales or make a migration into sales. So feel free to reach out to me either on LinkedIn or WhatsApp, and I'll be happy to coach you, guide you. So let's just start with very, very basics. Okay. So I assume that folks in IPM class, they're quite new to the whole thing and may not have a lot of context. So I'll start with very basic. So what is B2B sales? Okay. So as the name suggests, business to business. When you sell services, product or a software as a service platform to another organization, that's when it's called basically B2B sales. So what are the some of the nuances about B2B sales? Okay, so let's look at some on a very high level, some of the nuances. One is there are two organizations involved in this selling process. Okay, one organization which sells, one organization which buys. Typically, we have seen that the transaction amount is really high. I mean, if you see a typical SAP sale or a typical CRM application deal, right? So most of these deals are typically in the range of 300K or 250K, so roughly 2 crore in INR or more, right? So that is the typical the value of these sales. Uh, the people who are buying from you, right? I mean, if you're selling, for example, if I'm selling to ICICI Bank, a typical solution, the people who are at the buying side, maybe a head of procurement or a technology evangelist who's really given the charge of buying the services or the product which I'm selling, is very, very informed. Unlike a typical B2C environment, right? So the B2B sales buyer is very well informed. In fact, once I was pitching a service to a large healthcare company, and the person I went with the assumption that I have to explain the basic of my service, and to my surprise, he knew basically how exactly my services were evolved. How does it compare to the different my competitor solutions? He knew the nuances of the different technologies used and some of the pitfalls also. That also showed me that one has to be really prepared when you're doing really B2B sales. So every meeting should have a lot of prep time involved. The whole buying process is very complex to tell you. I mean, you start with the tech team, you pitch them. Once they are convinced, it goes to business team, to all the budget related verification. Procurement team is involved, legal team is involved. Then you have a blessing of whether CTO or CIO or CFO. So a lot of stakeholders, a lot of processes involved, and the timeline of typical B2B sales, if it's a small transaction, which is again more than probably 2 CR, it will be like 3 to 4 months. And I've seen the deals. In fact, in Capgemini, I was running a deal which went on for 1.5 years, and it was $100 million plus kind of deal. So yeah, excruciating. It's very to test your patience basically. It's very, very long, and one has to basically keep the rigor on. I mean, from the step one to step Z, and different stakeholders and the process have to be managed as a part. So what are the different kind of sales, right? I mean, I mentioned that services sales or product sales, and there are hunting roles, there are farming roles. So services sales and product sales basically do not differ much. I mean, you start with, if you are selling the right way, right? I mean, if you are starting from the customer and going backward from there, then it's not much of difference between these two sales. But then there are process related nuances, process related differences. For example, services sales generally goes through that RFI, RFQ, which is request for information, request for code, request for process, and proposal, those kind of process. While when you are selling a product, I mean, most of the time you have a solution. We do not really customize a lot to that to suit the customer. I mean, it's the same solution you go with. I mean, to answer a basic question, right? I mean, why are you doing MBA? Why to go for this course, right? I mean, some of the things you'll find that those would be the same reasons why you want to do probably sales. You want to move forward in your career rather very quickly. You want to reach the top position. You want a role which has a very good earning potential, right? And you have a lot of control on your job. Okay, so I'll tell you, and this may come as a surprise, this data. So sometimes an individual contributor sales guy earns more than, and I will say at least 30% of the team, sales team member, they earn probably more than their managers, right? That's something which only happens in sales, because you are in control of your destiny if you're meeting or exceeding your number, and that's how you get compensated. While your manager has basically the disadvantage of law of averages, right? So people have a lot of misnomer about sales, that the number pressures are really fierce, and you are under constant pressure. But I'll tell you that there is always a science behind the numbers. For example, if if a company has to grow and get a business worth of 5 million, okay, and for the sake of simplicity, he has only one manager and he has five guys, five individual sales contributors getting that business. He will distribute 1 million to each. Manager will have 5 million quota. Each of these sales guys will have 1 million of quota, and that's how the company will basically earn 5 million. So the number is divided. It's not that someone is given without any signs. You will take only that number which you are really comfortable. So targets are generally, in principle, they are a stretch because so that they can motivate you, uh, help you basically really work hard, but it's not that much a stretch where it can demotivate you, right? So you should not be disheartened to see, and that's where the target is. It's always a stretch, but not to the extent people think. If you do not meet your number, if you see the split of the quota of 5 million, your manager will not make his money, right? So that's why manager will give you the number which you can meet. So that's how the sales number really work in a very simplistic terms. So coming back to this slide, so yeah, so this has a quickest path to CU. I mean, if you see the data and you do a simple Google search, right, you'll find that around 30-40% of the CEOs come from the sales background. Okay, you also have a lot of control on your day, on your achievement, on your compensation, because you work hard, you overachieve, you get compensated accordingly. You can plan your day according to you. If you don't want to work beyond 6, probably you will not set up your meetings after 6. So those are some of the things that we do. Performance metrics are really clear even to your managers. You don't have to go and say and talk about the qualitative aspects. I mean, you're at the end of the year, your discussion with your manager is very simple. Okay, what was the quota? What was achieved? If 1 million was the target, whether you achieved 1.2 million or 800K, that is how your performance is judged. Even when you go and find a employment outside your company, in our CV, we very simply write that, okay, in this organization, this was the assigned quota and this is what my achievement was. So it's very, very simple that way across industry also. Also, I've felt that sales is a very transferable skill. Uh, if you're selling one day a automation solution, next day you can sell cloud, third day you can go and talk about the industrial automation solution. You take example of Mr. Anant Maheshwari. He was Microsoft CEO MD, India head. Now he has joined Honeywell, which is into aviation and industrial automation and other things, right? So it's very industry agnostic skills, and that's why I sometimes feel that this is one industry where your experience is valued, unlike many of the function where with experience you become costlier and your value comes down, right? uh, yeah, so there are many stereotypes about sales, right? I mean, people say that, I mean, if you can sell the ice maker to Eskimo, probably then only sales is a role for you. You don't need to do all this, right? I mean, if you want to really make a sustainable career out of sales, these are shortcuts. You cannot go to the same Eskimo again to sell next year, right? To sell the ice maker. That's why all starts with customer. If you're solving customers' pain point, then selling becomes easier. Then selling becomes repeatable next year, right? So those are some of the myths about selling, and I think we should be really clear about it. In fact, I had a lot of apprehension before I really joined sales. I thought that sales is all about a very extrovert kind of people who can go and talk their way out of any situation. And one of my mentor, he suggested that there is no cutout, there is no template for a sales profile. You bring your own personality in the way you do sales. If you are introvert, you will probably listen more, and probably that will help you because you will understand customer, their requirement, their pain point, right? So yeah, so there is, to summarize, there is no ideal personality, and one should really see if sales interests them, irrespective of how they are in social setup. I mean, you I think a lot of people would have watched the movie from Will Smith, which is Pursuit of Happiness, right? So that guy was seller in that movie, literally. And if you don't realize, I mean, you should go watch once more and see. Even during a very packed day, he was like finding out one more number, calling one more guy before leaving. And he was like so focused. And that's what the sales is. Sales is a lot of hard work. It's not an art. Maybe there are maybe only one in a million person who can go and sell without any hard work and preparation. But the rest of us, the selling is a very, very hard work kind of work. Um, you always have one more email, one more prospect to reach out to, one more call to make. And for each of these, you have to prep, you have to make your discussion very contextual, right? Then only you do. So just to give a simple sales funnel, right? So you have leads which come from maybe contact us page or the people who attended some of your industry functions. And then from there, you got their name. Then you reach out to these leads and you find that, okay, out of these 100 leads, maybe there are some prospects whom you can provide your proposal, company proposal, they are interested. And then you out of maybe a few people whom you have shown the proposal for your company solution or service, they start negotiating for a deal, and then the sale happens, right? So if you see, this is a funnel where uh, there is a the next function is a function of the previous one. So just to give an example, if you start with 100 lead, maybe cutting down in each of the stages, you end up with 5 sales, right? I mean, this is just example to make a point which I'm trying to do. If you start with maybe only 5 lead, probably you'll not make any sale, right? So to increase your chances of sale, you have to reach out, you have to make a lot of hard work, and you have to increase your pipeline, and you have to increase your funnel, right? So that is the crux of this slide. That is all about hard work. It's all about how much you can basically reach out. But is it only spray and pray, which is like, reached out and then pray that 5 sales happens? No, there is some method to this madness, right? There are some guiding principles. So if you go to Dell, or you go to EMC Square, or you go to any other company, they all follow one or the other methodology. Okay, so there are various guiding principles in the market. There are various sales training organizations, and they have their own methodology. And most of sales people, they get basically trained on these, so that your effort and your discussion with your customer is all structured, right? So hard work should also be structured in a way so that it can yield maximum value for the company, for yourself, and also the customer also can get the value from you, from your proposal, right? So I have got trained in a couple, in Medic and in Snap, and from various organizations I worked in. Okay, but the crux of all these methodology is understanding your customer really well, right? So understanding their budget, understanding their process, their pain points. I mean, for every requirement from the customer, okay, there has to be some pain point somewhere. Otherwise, they will not be buying, right? I mean, who wants to spend? What is really the urgency of them? Is the sale going to be a very exploratory, long run exercise, or are they going to buy something in the near future? Because just to tell you, and this is slightly digressing from this slide, your manager does not hate anything more than a deal slipping from this quarter to next quarter, right? I mean, as I said, your manager's salary depends on your achievement. If you are saying that, okay, I'm going to get a deal in this quarter because I have given a demo to customer, provided all the proposals, and they are like about to sign, your manager also forecasts this deal into their to his manager, and from there it has a far reaching consequence, right? I mean, it also goes to the annual report that we are having a pipeline of this many deal and everything, and the shareholders get affected. So it has, whatever you do at the bottom, it has a consequence. And if you do not know the paper process, if you do not know the budget, if you do not know the urgency, right? I mean, deal will slip to next quarter, and a lot of negative repercussions are involved. So all these methodology basically teach you how exactly, and I'll take one of this and I'll illustrate that what exactly and how exactly we use methodology to do the sales in our real life scenario, right? So talking about the metrics, right? I mean, and to before you do all this, I mean, there is an exercise of discovery where you ask a lot of questions with your customer, try to discover, and then basically note down some of these information, which really helps you do the sale, right? So if your customer is using any solution, any process, they must be having some KPI to measure the impact, right? I mean, for example, if they are using a CRM solution, they must be having KPI, that is it user friendly, how much time it saves for my sales guys, or how much efficiency it brings. So those are the KPIs. So you need to really know when you are asking your customer that what are the KPIs, okay, you are looking for. For example, if you're a sales guy for MongoDB, right, and you're selling this database to another company, for example, HDFC Bank, you need to ask that how exactly you are going to use this, what is exactly, how exactly you'll judge the impact of this MongoDB solution. Is it per query latency? Is it the data retrieval time or something like that? If you have these data, right, when you're doing proof of concept of doing a proof of value, you can emphasize on this and it will be easier for your customer to make a buying decision. Okay. Second very important part is that understanding your economic buyer and keeping that person in your whole sales effort. That we do sometimes as a sales guy. Even now, I make a decision sometimes to over qualify my economic buyer or under qualify. I mean, maybe I'm targeting someone really too up in the value chain or really too down. So you need to really understand who the economic buyer is. Economic buyer is that guy who has the veto power, right? I mean, he can say no to a proposal when everybody is saying yes, or he can say yes when everybody is saying no. I mean, as simple as that. He's the guy who's going to be affected by the solution or the services we are trying to pitch. You need to map this person. You need to get your CEO, CXO, or whoever the senior person is, and give that executive commitment and keep him involved, and have all the assurance that he needs. Decision criteria, right? It may sound very similar to metrics, but decision criteria are different. So decision criteria for choosing a service or a solution, right? Whether it's a cost, whether it's how big you as a company is. I mean, your turnover and things like that. Your sometimes they say that your the diversity you follow are carbon footprint neutral or not. Some of those are also there in the decision criteria, and also the technical fitment and things like that, right? So you need to really have a good handle on what the decision criteria is, what is the decision process. And as I said, right, I mean, your manager will be really unhappy when you slip a deal to next quarter, and that happens when you do not know the decision process. You do not know. Sometimes we feel that, okay, we give a proposal demo, we talked about our solution, and probably next day the sale will happen. But no, after that, maybe there is a proof of concept exercise which may go on for 2 months. Then there would be another person who will be involved where you need to give the demo and restart some of the things. Then after technical validation, there would be a business validation, and then a non-disclosure agreement will be signed, or a master service agreement will be signed. Legal will be involved. In one of the deal for a this major light company, yeah. So you all use the bulbs and the electrical products from this company. I started the deal in April, and I told my manager that next 3 months I'll close the deal. Okay. Next 2-3 months, we did the POC, competitive POC with our competitor was also involved. And after the POC was done, technical team said, yeah, very good result. And we really liked the features of your software. I thought that the signing will happen in next 1 week. And that's where the problem happened. A lot of process we came to know about, which even their own technical team did not know. And the deal was signed next year, March. Okay. So I did not receive a very good feedback on the way, I had a handle on this deal, but only the legal review went on for 2.5 months. So we need to really understand how a company operates, what are the different milestones, who gets involved when, and then when you will know that what is the decision process and what is the paper process. So when we say that, okay, we'll go and get a PO, right? A purchase order, which is really a sacrosanct, which is a really important thing for a sales person, right? So purchase order release also goes through a various, cycle, and for a very established and big company, the process is very, very complex. So you need to get a handle on the paper process and the decision process. uh, Identify pain point. I mean, this is the main reason why anyone discusses a deal, right? So you must be having a pain point. The customer has a pain point, then only your solution can go. It can be, the pain point can be financial, right? I mean, the product or the service they are using, that may be very costly, and then they want to save some money, and that's why they want a cheaper product, or it may not be very intuitive for the users to handle, and their own users are complaining about it, or it's very dated solution, you want something new, it's more of a transformation kind of thing. So those are the pain points you need to understand, and make sure that your solution, and when you talk about the solution or the software or the platform you're selling, those really map those pain points. It should be explicitly mapped. If it's not solving, probably there is no point pursuing it, wasting everyone's uh, time. Then also identify a champion. A champion is a person who again may sound like economic buyer, but very different. So champion is the guy who's going to be selling on your behalf in his own company. Okay, he should have some vested interest in your success. Okay, why would he have the vested interest? Okay, so maybe he's the person who was handling the team which was facing a lot of pain point, and he is very much convinced that the proposal which he got from your company is going to resolve that pain, and if any other solution comes, he may not be able to have a very smooth run, and that's why he's trying to sell this solution on your behalf. So in that case, you have to make a very close bond with that person, provide him all the ammunition in with respect to information, the matrices, the data points, your similar kind of customer examples. Also help him basically speak to some of your customer, map him clearly so that he can very easily sell your product or your service in his company. And the last, right, competitors. There is no fun without competitors, right? Competitors really help. They help your customer also, and they help you also, right? So we feel that when we have competitor, we up our game, we really improve our solution or our service. And in this whole process, customer gets benefited because he's getting something which is really best of the offering from all the providers. And so ultimately the beneficial is the customer. And uh, basically competitors can be many. Okay, many different. One is the usual competitor. For example, if I'm working in AWS, my competitor can be Oracle Cloud, GCP, Google Cloud, or Azure. Okay, these are known competitors, but there are some unknown competitors. And one unknown competitor is, for example, if you're fighting for the same budget with a different project, right? I mean, for example, if SAP migration project in the company, and you are trying to sell your automation solution, and company has a very limited budget. They want to either do the SAP migration, or they want to do but basically the automation from you. How exactly you will fight with this competitor? And that's where pain points really help. Sometimes the pain point for customer. Sometimes they do not understand that what is the negative consequences of living with that pain point. If you implicate those pain points to the customer, your you can increase the urgency of this deal for the customer, and you can also fight better with some of the competitors which I talked about. One is another project fighting for the same budget in the customer organization, right? Another can be customer thinking about whether to build or buy, right? That can also be a competitor, or simple inertia, do nothing, right? I mean, that is also sometimes happens. We start with a sale discussion, and we provide the proposal, and then customer thinks that, oh no, I don't think we have enough compelling reason right now, or enough use cases to take a particular solution. They will probably not. They will again sit on it for 1 year, and then again discuss, because nobody wants to spend money. They want to push it and postpone it as much as possible. And if you understand their customer business, if you can talk about some of the competitors who are already doing it, implicate again and amplify the pain point, you can influence some of these decisions, right? That's where understanding the customer is really, really important. Okay, so where do you go? I mean, what is the roadmap, right? So the two roadmap which I have highlighted within this yellow box, I mean, that's what primarily I'm going to talk about. I mean, the first one is inside sales, that is SDR. And the last one is basically the customer success. Those are not direct field sales. So I'll talk about the field sales. So in field sales, you start with basically either hunting profile or farming. Hunting is when you get new logos for your customer, or farming when you have the logo, but you increase the wallet share from those logos. And all these profiles, you start with account manager or account exec. You become after a few years you become sales manager, where you have few account managers reporting into you. Not everyone wants to be sales manager, and if you remember one of the slide where I said that 30% of the sales guys, they earn more than their sales manager, right? That is also one of the reason. And second, you want to have more autonomy in your work, and some people basically take their individual contributor route and they progress here. What changes for you is that, for example, when you start your career, you are handling a patch, or a territory of maybe 500,000, and with time basically it gets increases. There are some regional vice president who are in IC role, and they handle a business of 500 600 crores, or probably more than that in a year, right? uh, while a sales manager at a, in a different role, will handle maybe 50 crore business. So all that depends what exactly you want to go. But all this leads to the CEO role somewhere down the line. So you either become basically CRO to start with, and after chief revenue officer, you can, a lot of people move towards chief operating or chief executive officer kind of role. Okay, so just to motivate you guys and excite you guys, so this is a typical compensation range, okay, that is prevailing in the market. There is no confidential data. If you go to Michael page, you can download this report yourself, okay? So the field sales, in this is the top part is basically product sales, and the bottom part is services. Product compensation is slightly better. And if you see the max salary, I mean, this is where the realistic salary is prevalent. This is where you will see there's more, the average and the mean are probably on the lower side. I don't think that's really accurate. The max one is probably closer to the reality. So people do earn a lot. I mean, the earning potential is really high, and in services as well as in platform and typical SaaS sales. If that slide has gotten you interested, yeah, obvious question would be how to start and how to get into the sales role, right? So once you start getting into the placement kind of process, and then you start applying to various roles, I mean, do apply to B2B sales role, but without having any experience, right, in sales, how to convince people that you are the fit person for sales, right? So you have to show that your experiences are relevant, right? While you are going to sell, the services or the product for a company, you have to also sell your skills. You have to sell your candidature, right? So you have to make a few of the skills very much pronounced in your skill on your resume. Show that you have done similar kind of work in a very small way, or for example, you can talk about that you and I'm just taking an example that there was an event in Indore and you got lots of advertisement and got this funded from outside and reached out and talked about how much the footfall would be, and then you got people excited and asked them to fund it, right? I mean, those kind of typical examples. I mean, when you are really fresh, right? You don't have any. So those are some of the sales stories you can highlight. You start with a entry level job or a junior profile, and then uh, once you start working, you have 1 or 2 years of experience. You can always switch job. There are ample number of sales opportunities in the market. There's no doubt for people who are go-getters, who are like hustlers, right? Also read about sales. Sales is an obvious thing, right? But should not be done in a very obvious way. I mean, if you have a methodology to follow, if you have some plan to follow, that really helps you, and you also sound very credible, and also sound very sincere to your customer. I mean, if you have done a lot of prep, your customer will never be unimpressed by your preparation. He will only be impressed, and he will say that, okay, the person has come to talk about a proposal with a lot of homework. He has studied my LinkedIn profile. He has studied about the company, their problems, competitors, what other companies are doing, and what. So if you have done all this homework, anyone will give you a time to hear, and then they will be interested in what you are going to offer. Enthusiasm and optimism, these things are really important. Even if you are on the last week of quarter, you are not meeting your number, you have to be enthusiastic and optimistic about meeting your number. That's what the sales job is. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. So any questions? We can open for the questions. I was told that it would be roughly 30-40 minutes of session, so this is what I have covered. It's a vast topic, so feel free to connect with me, and as the time permits, I can further go deep dive and explain further.
Sure, thank you, sir. So the floor is now open for questions. You can drop your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself as well. Yes, Tulsi, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you for your insightful talk. In the end, you mentioned two things. One about skills, and second was about reading about. Apart from in skills section, you mentioned that you saw what you have done in the college. But in terms of reading, like what would you suggest? Could you some specific research or anything like that?
Yeah. So don't have any name of a resource handy right now. I'll find out and I'll tell you. But a simple, I shared some of the sales methodologies, right? That these are Snap or Medic or Challenger sales. These are a good starting point to learn what the sales is. Okay. This gives a structure to your discussion. This gives a structure to how exactly you will approach a particular deal. So I would say that start from there. Also, maybe take a B2B sales course from one of these academies which offer, courses. So that will also help you with some material. But I will find out if there is any book or something or a course material, and I'll maybe send it to you guys.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? We'll just wait for a few seconds. Otherwise, we'll just continue. So I think that would be all from my end. Thank you so much, sir. What a enlightening and inspiring session we have had. Sincere thanks to you for sharing your profound insights into the world of B2B sales. Your wealth of experience and knowledge has undoubtedly left us all with some really valuable key takeaways and a deeper understanding of this dynamic field. We are truly fortunate to have had such an exceptional speaker with us today. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the participants for joining in. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Naisha. Thanks, Jigar.
Thank you, Sudhanshu. Thank you.
Thanks.